Hi there, this is the King in Yellow with another video. This one is going to be about autism in schools. Lately I've been doing a lot of work with sort of thinking about how disability, self-advocacy, all of that works into schools. Been reading a lot, worked with um, some excerpts from Send in the Idiots, Born on a Blue Day, Freaks, Geeks, and Asperger's Syndrome. Um, so basically, going to focus on how schooling has changed for folks with disabilities, especially focusing on autistic folks, and how the media has really changed regarding folks with autism and Asperger's syndrome. There's been some interesting stuff, and I think a lot of it is sort of brought to light by by these three texts. Basically, we have to boil down to one simple question, and that is, how much do we want to treat autism like we do most other disabilities? Because the interesting thing, which isn't terribly common when you're talking about disabilities, is that it's not purely disabling. It's not. There are certain things that some would even say many autistic folks, Asperger's folks in that spectrum, I'm probably going to use autistic to mean the whole spectrum, not just autistic, even though there are vast differences between the two disorders. I may clump them together, so please don't get irritated. Essentially, it can't be treated like other disabilities, like other disorders, because there are certain things that autistic and Asperger's people may be able to do even better than folks that don't fall into the spectrum. And there are some problems. There are some problems with it, because it is sort of becoming the disorder of the month, so to speak, or disorder of the year. People are talking about how there's a rise in diagnoses for autism and Asperger's syndrome, a rise in misdiagnoses, because we've sort of accepted as a culture that these people aren't idiots, that they're special, that they have abilities. I'm not talking about, superhero abilities, but sometimes it almost feels that way. Things, mental capacities which we don't have. So how do you treat that? How do you manage a person that perhaps is immeasurably brilliant, but just can't communicate in a way perhaps that we find meaningful, or perhaps can't communicate without aid? We're talking about assisted communication. There's a lot of questions that it brings up. As a teacher, as a member of a society that has people who don't fall into the spectrum, people that do, living together, what does that mean for them, for us, for our society as a whole? And I think you can see it very clearly in media, especially when you look at, we're here on YouTube, it's free media, anybody is free to express themselves. There are several individuals that fall into the spectrum that use YouTube as a platform of expression, and the general media is also grasping it more and more. We're years beyond Rain Man, by a long shot, and our ability to see autistic folks in a constructive and realistic light is really evolving. So it does pose a problem for a teacher and a person who strongly believes in a sort of restructuring and a progressive form of education to say, hey, how do we get these people in? How do we make a system that works for both sides? And how do we make a system that works not just for autistic people who are high functioning, who maybe are savants, or who embrace a specialty subject, which we as a academic society deem constructive. You know, how do we work a system that works for everybody, without separating out, sifting through autistic people and saying, okay, you're amazingly skilled, you get to go in this category. You're not, you go in this category. Because there are people on both sides of that divide. Sometimes the divide is very strong. Usually we see the divide as being strong because of communication. Because if a high functioning autistic person is brilliant and they can communicate it, we're going to notice. But if a high functioning person can't communicate properly, we're not going to see them as being as high functioning just because of their communication disability. Even if they may make up for it with some other ability. We've seen folks such as, I like to point out, Born on a Blue Day. You know, it's not your typical autistic that this is coming from. Freaks, Geeks, and Asperger's syndrome is not your typical Asperger's guy. They're extraordinary people that have done extraordinary things that most ordinary people can't do, and they've overcome paramount extra challenges. We'd see, to a slightly different extent, the current YouTube, maybe it's not quite a sensation, but it's certainly a phenomenon of In My Language. It's a creative and expressionistic powerhouse, pretty much. It's just, it hits you pretty hard, and I mean, it's scary, and it freaks you out the first time you watch it, and it freaks you out the second time you watch it, and it may very well freak you out every time you watch it, but it also really says something about using YouTube, using this form of media as a really positive way to send out a message, and to prove that they can communicate. They can communicate in ways that we don't usually give credit for, in ways that forms of expression that we don't have. And I think we need to work on, in as education is being reformed with every generation of teachers, work on trying to find a way to bridge the gap between special and special needs, and to see that you can fall in both categories, that you can truly be amazing despite, or with, not even despite, but with a disability. But also seeing that being special with a disability doesn't make you specialer, or doesn't make you specialer, more special. I think maybe that's the question that we can end on, is if you've got a disability and you do something special, does it make you more special than a normal person that has done something which is also special?